All right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and it's time for the newspaper review. We'll begin with Daily Trust, a newspaper. Let's take a look at the lead story here that says abductions dip by 28% in August as troops scale up operations. We have writers that say Borno, Kaduna lead as 859 Nigerians killed. 262 local government areas in 36 states affected. Killings rise by 49% from July. What government needs to do, says security experts. And then you actually find an infograph of this particular story and the breakdown of killings, abductions in August 2022, and details of the story on page 4. We have, the front page comment talking about a call to patriotism as Nigeria clocks 62. We have more stories here that says flood kills 37, displaces 171,000 in Adamawa. Tambuwal stops salaries of striking varsity lecturers on page 5. And we also have police recover women's corpses in doctor's office in Kwara State. You can find details of that story on page 16. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, up next is Daily Sun newspaper, where the lead story says, as moves against Adamu thicken, cracks in APC deepen. The story has riders, more Christian leaders snub presidential campaign. PCC, that is Presidential Campaign Council, DARE's National Working Committee, issues appointment letters to members. Up there, CBN spends 2.6 trillion intervention fund on 3 sectors. MPA concludes concession agreement, 6 FG's approval. This is a story on page 2 of today's The Sun newspaper. And then, just below that headline is a pictorial showing, illustrating the meeting that PDP leaders had over the weekend. People's Democratic Party, PDP governors Sheyi Makinde, Okezi Epeazu of Abia, Nyesom Wike of Rivers, Ifeanyi Ogwanyi of Enugu, and Samuel Otom of Benue after a meeting in Enugu yesterday. By the side of the picture, 2023 elections, police train pilots, aircraft engineers for aerial surveillance. Story on page 5. And then IPOB suspends sit-at-home order as Kanu appears in court tomorrow. Labour appeals to pro-Biafra group against interfering in 2023 census. Below that, CCB commissioners petition Senate accused chairman of blocking corruption probe. Then below that, Pina wins BB Niger's 100 million naira grand prize. By the side, and the second lead of the paper today is Nigeria at war, says Adeboye. Don't allow corrupt politicians mediocrity lead anymore. PFN, that is Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, tells Nigerians. Lastly, flood sacks 12 Edo communities. It's a story on page 27 of today's Daily Sun newspaper.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Daily Independent newspaper. And we have the lead story that says businesses, households panic as new interest rate regime begins. And a writer that says analysts see restrained spending, investment, stock market valuations. We also have more stories. The federal government accuses ASU of disobeying court order to reopen universities, insists IPPIS, UTAS, UPPS failed credibility test. I am healthy, ready to serve, says Tinubu. And we also have PDP reclaims Abuja Council chairmanship from APC. Serap asks Buhari to declare assets, recommit to transparency. And we also have commissioners allege CCB chairman blocking probe of corruption cases, say he blocked investigation into 109 billion naira linked to AGF Idris. At the top of the page, we have housing allowance scandal. Why we can't go after PDP officials, says EFCC. We also have PDP crisis. Wike, Autumn, Makinde, Ikpeazu, Ogwanyi meet may back Peter Obi. And we also have, just on the footnote there, NAMA to engage 100 air traffic controllers as ATC's shortage looms. And these are some of the stories on Daily Independent.
Let's look at this day newspaper next. At the top of the page, for first time, Buhari excludes excellent President Saraki from national honors, nominates late Abakari Enahoro for posthumous awards, Lawan Bajabi Amila, CJ and Service Chiefs Okonjo-Iweala, Amina Mohammed, This Day Star, Music Stars, among 435 others. Presidential Council to facilitate states' access to $750 million World Bank facility. It's a story on with detail on page 6. And then below the nameplate, Atiku 2023 is choice between new direction and those who want to sustain current disaster. And there are riders to the story. A last-minute move to keep one house. Meets BOT members, Northeast stakeholders next. Wiki Ogwangi Ipeazu Makinde Auto meet in Enugu. Emmanuel PDP will get it right in 2023. Said it is the only party in Nigeria. And of course, the big story on this morning says Tinubu roars back. Says his feet are ready to serve. APC Presidential Campaign Council holds inaugural meeting this week. And below the pictorial is another story saying strike. MG warns ASU against disobeying court order. Details of that story can be found on page 11 of today's This Day newspaper.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the Nation newspaper. And the lead story here says PDP Board of Trustees may ask IU to resign over crisis. We also have writers on that story that say party leaders to meet Wike in Port Harcourt tomorrow, or Tom Ikpeazu Gwanyi Makinde brainstorm in Enugu. Emergency NEC meeting underway in Abuja. We also have below that story, PFN to Nigerians, vote competence, not religion. And then we have beside the pictorial of Shiwaji Tinubu spotted on an exercise, bicycle, saying interest hike, firms face risks. 125 die in Indonesia's stadium stampede. Obey court order, government tells ASU. Ukraine celebrates recapturing towns. At the top of the page, we have Ohaneze to Southeast. Don't take Atiku seriously. Federal government to develop 66,761 water schemes. Minister, bill not political. We also have gunmen abduct Kwara monarch, wife drive. FINA wins BB Niger's 100 million naira prize. Yes, below the nameplate there, Buhari orders scrapping of amnesty office in 6 months. And then on the footnote there, over 7,000 Nigerians yet to recover from COVID, an ex-footballer held for drugs. These are some of the stories that made it to the Nation newspaper.
And with that, we take some analysis and viewpoints regarding the major stories this morning. And we have in the studio Mukhtar Suleiman, our public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for joining us, Mukhtar, this morning. It's a delight to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, so many things this morning. I don't know, Sina, you seem to have something between you.
Yes, let's start with the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper that talks about the abductions dip, by 28% in August as troops scale up operations. And but we also have another writer that actually says Borno Kaduna lead as 859 Nigerians are killed. Like, that is an alarming number.
In 1 month.
In 1 month. Alarming number.
It's good morning. First things first.
Good morning.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day.
Yeah, we're 62. That's weird.
You seem to have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, we'll put that on for later. But talking about the lead story, abduction dips by 28%. It's a good thing that the military is actually picking up the pace, and they're doing so quietly, because unlike before, where I think I saw one of Bulama's cartoon once, where the government said something that they wanted to do about operations to tackle bandits, and the cartoon was when that is usual character reading the newspaper, and he said, are they talking to us or are they talking to the bandits? You know, because if you want to do something like that, why announce it? You go ahead and then you do it, and then you tell us what the result is. So it's been good actually, and it's on the other side, it's actually sad that the collateral damage, 859 people, it's a lot. I don't know how that number, we come by that number, but 829 is, one person is not, it's a lot to lose. 829, it's so sad that we looked at the paper today and then it sounds like it's numbers.
And then 262 local governments in 36 states are affected.
It's really, really painful, honestly. I think it's as painful as it is to say, it is the ripple effect of the situation we have in the country currently. And I'm hoping that the death of these people is not going to be in vain and that this thing can actually be just nipped in the bud ASAP.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But now look at, when we look at this issue of flood, I know that it's been discussed a number of times, especially in the last few weeks, but it seems that the torrential waters are not abating, are not done yet. Like recently in Adamawa, in Edo, in Kogi still, more people are killed, more houses are submerged.
What's painful?
Do we have adequate response? Do you think we are having adequate response to the disaster?
It is disgusting for us to keep doing this every year. It has been like this since 2012, since that major flood in 2012 that actually made the news, and it has happened concurrently since then. We should not be responsive. We should be proactive and not reactive toward things like this. Poor drain infrastructures, you are releasing the dam without making pathways for the water to actually go through, and it's raining season as well again. It is not nice, honestly. It's really pissing whenever I come off, whenever this news comes up every year for the same region, for the same reasons, and then nothing is done. So we can't just keep playing the same track, the same record every single time, and then NEMA comes out, gives a statement. I know on the side of the citizens, there's another part. I know that the last, it wasn't this year, I know sometime last year, there was this issue of, they told people not to build houses in certain areas, that is the waterways, and they still go ahead and do that. On that part, I think we need to also take responsibility, but the government needs to enforce themselves. We cannot say, for the sake of pity, or we don't want to look bad in the face of the public, then we're going to sacrifice a whole lot of other people as collateral damage for that. So we can't keep doing this every year, honestly. It's annoying. I've been following the news of the floods in Jigawa, that of Lokoja, and the rest of them, and we're still seeing the same thing. This is the same tone that played last year, the year before that, the year before that, the year before that. We really need to change something. We really need to do something about that.
Could this be because of the inland waterways, the River Niger and several other rivers in the hinterland are not, have been filled up by, sand filled and all that. The dredging has been dragging for long and all that. Could that be, a major problem, you think?
I think in every situation, there's always a cause and effect.
Yeah.
Effect, dredging is not done. Cause, corruption. We need to actually tackle that from that angle. We need to look at it from that angle, because we cannot keep dealing with the effects of things without looking at the causation of it. And that's where we are in the country. If not, why is it delaying, for the love of God? It's that thing about us being too reactive rather than being proactive in the country.
Right, now let's move on to, education. We all know, where, the education is or stands in Nigeria. Now, with the ASUU and, federal government, being at loggerheads, as regards to the strike, we have Tambuwal stopping salaries of strike university lecturers. Do you think other governors should actually follow suit?
Honestly, this is how do I put this? It's not a very comfortable position. But if you're going to go on strike, obviously you're not going to get paid. It's the way strike works. That's why I've said this before on the show. It's why certain other union bodies in other countries, whenever they want to go on strike, they have a strike fund. Currently, the University and college lecturers in the UK, they're on strike. They've been on strike since I think 28th or 25th of September. They have a strike fund that keeps their members up and doing throughout that period. So we cannot actually say, keep paying me for not working, and I still have a say. You cannot eat your cake and have it at the same time. It is sad, like I've said 1,001 times, the situation that we've gotten ourselves into and how much this case has deteriorated. But the problem I now have with how the thing is going is the weaponization of the judicial system by the federal government. It looks like they're trying to use the judicial system to bully the union lecturers to go on strike, to call off the strike. You signed an MOU, you've renegotiated this MOU 1,000,000 times with almost the same faces. Within this tenure alone, let's assume, former government signed the MOU, agreed. 2017 renegotiated. It renegotiated after that, renegotiated again this year during the course of the strike. It has renegotiated 1,000,001 times. Try as much as possible to live up to your end. Meet them halfway, meet them somewhere. But every time there's a meeting, we always hear that the government came back and just started saying, please call off the strike. Like that's not how it works. They need to do their own part as well. But again, from the side of the lecturers, I don't think that they should expect to be paid when you are sitting at home. It's that thing about you cannot take measure from when you're not ready to give your own part of it. If you're going to be on strike, you're at home, I should still be paying you salary. Come on. Because now they've divided the whole function into three. That a lecturer's function is research, this, that. But let's call a spade and not a shovel. The primary reason why you're a lecturer, the major one, is the lecturing itself. And if that's what we need to actually do, that's what they actually need to do. That's most of what they get paid for. It is sad and it is pathetic, but it's just the way it is.
Now, Mukhtar, I know we've discussed this in the past, the issue of subsidy. The Punch this morning is reporting that 3.92 trillion naira in subsidy, which of course topples the, I think it should be combined budget of defense, health, and education. What's your thoughts about this? Is this really sustainable?
I think what is the subsidy angle for health, I think the only point
what I'm saying is that the subsidy, fuel subsidy,
is the fuel subsidy
3.92 trillion naira.
That's too much.
Which is more than the budget to defense, health, and education.
That is too much. I've always said repurpose the money for subsidy. I've never really been a fan of fuel subsidy, really. But the only problem I have, and I've said this before, is if you're going to repurpose the money for fuel subsidy, make sure that I do not have to generate secondary source of power. If the government can do their own part to ensure that there's stable power in the country, stable light for economic activities to thrive, then they can go ahead and remove the subsidy for all we care. Then we know that buying fuel is based on the fact that you just want to maybe use it for extra something. You want to drive your car and the rest of that. Because in all honesty, that money I've always said that the money being pumped into fuel subsidy, one, I see a lot of things wrong with it, over budgeting of that fuel subsidy. Because if you work in a public service long enough, you see that the over budgeting is almost everywhere and almost in everything. So somebody is pocketing some large chunk of that money as well. Not even just somebody, some people rather. So repurpose that money, use it for health, use it for education. If 1.something trillion of that money can go into education, if another few billion can go into health, I think it will make it a bit better, as opposed to, because fuel is not really, the reason why fuel is a basic necessity is because we have to use it to generate light, in all honesty. That's just the only reason why fuel is a secondary resource. Basic amenities are power, water, good road networks. So if these things are not available, honestly, I don't count fuel as it. But the only reason why it is actually a primary basic necessity for us currently is because the government have failed in their own side of the contract to provide stable power supply for us.
All right, let's take a look at, some politics. And the lead story on Punch talks about the PDP crisis and how, aggrieved governors, meet in Enugu and, are actually plotting Ayu's removal. Is that, an option?
I knew it was going to be an interesting ride when on the 28th, that morning, I woke up, I was so excited. Okay, politics. Then we saw that APC postponed their campaign, launching of the campaign, and then later we heard there was a letter from Adamu, and then there was a rebuttal from the letter from Adamu. It's crazy. Honestly, I look forward to the fun-fillness of this entire campaign.
And then
period.
the nation is actually saying the Board of Trustees, may ask Ayu to resign for the crisis to end.
I think at the end of the day, that's where it has to go. Because if PDP does not, one person, it's, how do I put this? How do I put this in the way? Because, like I've said, the thing has deteriorated into a pissing contest between both camps.
And I think you've mentioned in the past that this is an ego battle.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's really deteriorated into that ego thing where everybody's just trying to show that they are more powerful from both camps. That's where the issue is currently, and it is. How do I put this? How do I say this without sounding? I'm trying to piece the words together properly. Ayu would have to go eventually.
Okay,
the way I see it, I would have to go in.
But
you have to look at the larger picture. You have to look at the bigger picture. If not, because what's his name? Peter Obi leaving PDP already. Had already taken some bits of PDP with him. He took some influence. He took some candidates and all of that. He took that with him to Labour Party. You don't want to divide that, the power you have already now, the many power you have again. Because APC is just there. If they don't play their cards well and find a way to unify the house as the unifier is running, on the unifier mantra that he's running, then we're looking at Tinubu winning.
But what do you think? There's actually an assumption that if Wike decides to leave PDP, him and his team might support Peter Obi.
I don't know how realistic that is. You can never say. Honestly, PDP is politics. I mean, politics is a very fragile game. It's a very weird game, undecisive. You'll be very surprised that it might go back to NNPP, he might go to APC. We never can tell. It all depends on how he wants to, what he wants, and who can actually match what he's going to be bringing to the table. So as the internal crisis continue, we'll keep following it, we'll keep watching, and we'll keep seeing new dance steps from Wike, as usual, or as expected.
That's interesting, but some people still on this issue believe that Wike himself and maybe his people have said that they are not going to leave the PDP, and now look at them, 5 governors. Do you see a scenario, because of course politicians can say one thing and do another? Do you see a scenario, if you remember, of what happened in 2014 when PDP governors, I think 8 of them also moved to the APC, and which led to the defeat of the party at the center?
I don't know if that. See, the thing is, I've always said this. I think it's absolutely unfair how Atiku handled the situation from the start when it became an issue. I think Wike's bluff was called, and at this point, he's willing to just let he knows that there's that thing of, and I'm not the only person that will die. Well, at least all of us will die together. That's what he's looking at. He's looking at crashing and burning a lot of things before he eventually leaves. So if a removal of Ayu would not stop the party from running, I think it's a logical compromise. It all depends, because another thing, again, another fear I think they might have is he might not stop there. He might not stop there. If he successfully removes Ayu, he would want something else, because of course human wants are insatiable. So whatever it is that they are going to do, I don't know if there's going to be heavy decamp, because Wike has actually invested a lot of time, money, energy into the party over the last 4 years. I don't know if he would want to just leave all of that. I doubt that. But so, let's see what goes on.
The APC itself is not short of crisis. The Sun this morning is talking about plot to remove Adamu again. And I remember there was a reassuring statement recently that they are on the same page and all that when Tinubu visited Adamu at the campaign headquarters. But the Sun this morning saying moves against Adamu taking cracks in APC deepen. And then more Christian leaders snub presidential campaign and all that. But of course, I saw pictures yesterday of Speaker Gbajabiamila leading some other people to visit Adamu's farm in Nasarawa State. But do you see this crisis in the APC in the same light as that of the PDP?
No, I don't. That of PDP's own has like strong vendetta, as opposed to there's just a.
So it's more life-threatening.
Yeah, it's more terminal. That of PDP's own is more terminal, but I think that of APC's own, they're eventually going to find a way to just come together. And at this point, they cannot afford any more crisis, owing to the fact that people are already losing public trust for the current flag bearer. To the point where we saw the stunts that they pulled yesterday with the whole cycling exercise thing, which was really, really weird. I don't think that was really, really absolutely necessary. But the crisis in APC is really not as dire. I don't think it's as dire as that of PDP.
Okay, so share your thoughts on the story of a Kwara State doctor who's
Yeah, I saw that news.
Yes, the doctor killed his wife and girlfriend, and buried them in his office.
No, his girlfriend and another woman.
I saw that story and I was cringe when I saw that. I don't even know how to. I don't even know if I have an opinion on that, because it's really, really weird. It's honestly weird. Like it goes out to tell you. There was this time when I was growing up, I used to watch this show on YouTube, where online, not just YouTube though, like random places online, where I've forgotten the name of the program, where they just show you the weird fetishes that people have, some of the things that people can actually tolerate. I wonder how you could have somebody, you could commit murder, have them kept in your office, and still go there every day. It's a very cold thing to do. I don't think I'll be able to live in the same. I know people bury people in their compound. I don't think I'll be able to live in that compound. Honestly, I don't think I'll be able to live in such a compound, much less have someone buried in the office where I go to work on a daily basis. I think that doctor should actually face the fullest extent of the law, should get the capital punishment possibly, and justice should be served.
Okay, now let's close on a more serious, or should I say more, another sad note also, but the issue of business, interest rates and all that. Some of the papers this morning report about, the last MPC meeting of the CBN approved the jacking of interest rate. Businesses, household panic as new interest rate regime begins. That's what the Daily Independent reported this morning, and of course I have seen similar story in some other newspapers. What do you make of this in a quick intervention?
The problem I have with the interest rates, the taxes and the rest of it is we do not see the ripple effect back to us. I feel like the government is not trying hard enough to ensure that businesses thrive. Economies that succeed are run on blue-collar driven economies. That way jobs are created, monies are generated, monies keep circulation within the country. But if you're going to increase interest rate, you're actually discouraging businesses, because you're increasing interest rate despite the fact that there's inflation in the country and there's still low money in circulation. So purchasing power is low from everybody else in the country. Cost of recurrent expenditure is high, and then you are telling them that interest rate will go up as well. It's just as if we have terrible people making economic policies that doesn't make sense within the context of the country. Because when you ask them these questions, they tell you, oh, go to other countries, go and see what they are doing, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. But within the context of that country, look at the current economic status that they have or that they share in the country. You see that it's not the same as us. Because the variables that ensures that those businesses are able to pay back the returns and keep their own profits and everything else is available for them. Here, something as basic as power, you have to account for that in your budget, in your day-to-day recurrent expenditure.
Right.
Look at how much diesel costs. Banks are shutting down. Some banks are not running, they are stopping their operations by 3 p.m. And it's really, it's something that the government needs to look into, ensure that there is an environment for us to actually thrive in the country before you begin to make rash decisions like this.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mukhtar, for joining us on the newspaper review this morning.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for analyzing some of these stories with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that was Mukhtar Suleiman, a public affairs commentator. And with that, we've come to the end of newspaper review. We'll take a break, and when we return at the top of the hour, the show continues.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that